everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to use the parameters basically which we have created in the parameter store in our Java Spring Boot application. How we can use it, how we can retrieve it. So that's the whole goal of this video is. So let's start. So first of all, I'll just walk you through the parameters here. So I have application name here, which is my app name, then app version. Then I have the password, which is the secure string. Okay, and then allowed file types is basically a list of values, which is a string list. So let's go to the Java code. Okay. This is my Spring Boot application which I have created. So let's understand this Spring Boot application. So first of all, I'll just show you. It's very simple application.yaml properties. The name of the application is AWS and server port is 8090. And part is the form.xml. Since we are going to use or we are going to basically use the services of parameter store, right? So I need the SDK or dependency of SDK, SSM or the parameter store that I need to add actually. So I'll just walk you through the Maven or pom.xml. So here, if you look at the pom.xml, the name of my artifact is AWS SSM version 1 and Java version is 21. And this is the latest SDK version, which is 2.51.3. And you can get this from the Maven central repository. Okay. In the Maven central repository, as you can see, 2.51.3 is the latest version, which was released on August 9th or okay. So it's pretty latest. So I'm using that same thing. You can get this information from your Maven central repository. And this is important. This is the dependency management part. So here you actually add this software.amazon.aws SDK and artifact ID is BOM. Okay, builds of material. Okay, so that's the full form of BOM, builds of material. So it has actually complete list of services, basically whatever SDK supports, correct? So it will have for the dependency for S3 or DynamoDB for SSM, etc. Whatever services that are there that are part of SDK will be in this list. Now why we are adding this in the dependency management. What it will do is in the builds of material, what we are saying is use this version code 2.51.3. So this will kind of create a list, okay, of 2.51.3. So this is just an index or list. You could say it's just an index in list. And as you can see, the scope is only import. It will not be part of your jar file. So it is not going to eat up or basically consume any or increase the size of your package. Okay. Otherwise, you might just think that even though I'm just going to use parameter store only, or I'm going to work on parameter store only, but I'm still adding each and every, uh, I mean, dependency of AWS of various services like S3, etc., which I'm not going to use right now. So this is just an index. Okay, just keep this thing in mind. This is just an index. So what will happen when I add here SSM, right? I don't need to mention any version, etc. It will by default pick up from this index. And see, if you and say suppose if I want to add the dependency of S3, then you just go here and change it to S3. That's it. You don't need to mention version, etc. You can mention version here. That is also fine. But problem is that is basically you can avoid this part. You can remove this part. But then there is a possibility, right, that you might add SSM with 2.31 and S3 with 2.40, something like that. So there will be discrepancies in the versions as well. So just to maintain that same version is being used for all the services which you are going to use in your application, this dependency management helps. So I just spend more time here to explain you this part. Just make sure that you add this part, and this is not going to add any, basically it is not going to increase the size of your package. So just keep this thing in mind. So for now, I'm just going to use SSM. That is why I've just added this dependency. The rest other, Lombok, DevTools, WebMVC, etc. is pretty common for a Spring Boot application. I'm not going to explain that. Okay, so this is important as far as form.xml is concerned. Using this, now we can actually create or access the parameter store, AWS parameter store. Now, if you go to the configuration part. So I'll start with the AWS config. So this is the first configuration class, which is called as AWS config. So here I have just created a region instance field. Okay. So this is just the static string. Okay, which is provided by AWS. So here US East one. For every region, you can just add here. Since I'm going to access the parameter store from region US East one, that is why I'm using this particular field, region field. And when I'm creating this client, okay, for this parameter store SSM client, so I'm using this region. Just keep one thing in mind: SSM is also a regional resource. So parameters created in US East one cannot be accessed in AP South one or Mumbai region. Okay, just keep this thing in mind. Those are completely different. You will have to create separate parameters in the other region. So that is why we need to pass this information when we are creating the client. So we are creating this bean now. Once this bean is created, what you can do is using this bean, basically now you are going to just retrieve the parameters. So for this retrieving the parameters, first I have created a parameter service. So just let's understand this part. Okay. So here I'm using SSM client. Okay. The client that we saw. Okay. So in this SSM client, now this is our get parameter. So I'll pass the parameter name. So what will be my parameter name here? So my parameter name would be like my app slash dev slash app slash name. So this is my parameter name and type is string, string list, etc. Okay. So and based on this get param value. So I'm calling this internal private method. Okay. Now here I'm just passing this parameter name here. So it could be like my, just take this example, my app dev app slash name. Okay. If I'm passing this and my type is string. So what it will do is this is another class basically provided by AWS SDK. As you can see, it is part of SDK services SSM model, which we have seen right in the form.xml. We added this dependency of SSM. So in that itself, we are getting this request model. So if you look at this is the request model that we get. And then, so here we are building, first of all, we are building this request. Okay. And once we build this request, then we call this get parameter. Now, what is my parameter name? That is what I am passing. And the other important field is with decryption. So see, if it is secure string, I'll have to make sure that with decryption is true. And if it is a normal string, right, then with decryption will be false. Okay. So this is an important parameter, especially for secure string. Otherwise, if you pass with decryption as false, the secure string, you will get the encrypted value. So if you want a decrypted value, ideally for passwords, etc., I won't be doing the decryption. Okay. This is just for the demo purpose that I am doing this. Okay. So here you can see that we can use dot decryption and here I pass the name. So now your uh, request is ready. Now you call the client. Okay. So this is the method of SSM client. You call the get parameters. You pass the request here and you get the dot parameter. So you get it returns the parameter. Go to parameter. So this is the same thing that we see in the AWS console. Okay. You get the name, type, and all this information is there in the parameter basically, and few other extra fields are also there. So once you get this parameter, now you can actually get the param value or basically parameter dot value. So one of the fields in the parameter is dot value, the string value. So value is nothing but if I click here, this is the value actually. My application, my new application. Okay. So this is what the parameter does. So here you get the parameter dot value. So this is for string and secure string, this method. And for string based parameter, the upper part is same. Basically, you first get the parameter and then we just split it using comma and then convert it into a list of string. Everything else remains the same. So this is basically load file types. Here you can see we have three fields, three values: JSON, XML, and Excel. So here you can retrieve it in this way as a string list. So this is about the parameter service. Now, what I'm doing in the application parameters, and I'm just creating the beans actually. Now this is application parameter. This is again a configuration class. So this is creating all the beans. Beans is nothing but basically all the parameters. Okay, so application name, application version, password, allowed file types. I'm just creating beans actually of these values actually. Okay, and these are nothing but strings only, and one of them is the list of things. If you look here, the first is application name. So what I'm passing in the parameter, what I'm passing is my app dev app slash name, and the type is string. Okay, and we already have seen the parameter service which you have written, right? So I'm just calling that method get parameter, and then it basically returns the application name. Similarly, for application version, it will return the version, and for password, here I'm passing secure string. So here I'm doing the distinguishing part. So if I go here, so here I told you right with decryption this particular field. So that is why I needed this parameter secure string. So this is my own implementation. This is internal implementation from AWS. We get this SSM client, and using this SSM client, here I am getting the parameter values. So this you can keep in mind. This you can implement it anyway that you want. This is just to showcase that. Uh, I'm just creating the beans of all the values. That's it. Not necessarily we need to do this. And then what I'm doing is I'm also creating one more bin, which has all app parameters, and I've created a record actually, which has application name, application version, database password, and list of allowed file types, list of string basically. And here the beans which I have created right here, okay, application name, application version, I'm passing the same beans here. Either you pass the beans here or internally you call this method. It is one and the same when you're building this. So instead of passing this app name, this basically this bean, okay, this string bean, I can directly call this method also. That is also fine. This is just to, this is the way just I have implemented. That implementation can be changed. And this is something, now this particular record will have all the parameters, okay, parameters, which we have created in the parameter store. And the final one is the API. So it's a simple API. And so first time, what I'm doing is, see, I have created the bean, right, of this type of app parameter DTO. I have created the bean of a parameter DTO. So I'm just adding this same bean here, and I'm adding the qualifier also, all app parameters. So now it is injected into this main controller. Okay, now main controller has app parameter DTO, basically this all app parameters bean. Now when I'm calling this API slash all app params, then it returns this bean basically. Now this bean contain all the parameter values. So it's a pretty simple application, nothing that fancy about it. So when I'm calling this, my bean is already created because these are configuration class. Okay, just note that this is a configuration class. This is a configuration class. In parameter service is the service class, which is being used by the application parameter. Nothing else. It's a very straightforward thing. And then the important part was form.xml. Now once you're done with this, we will actually deploy this application to AWS Elastic Beanstalk. Now we will go to the AWS Elastic Beanstalk to deploy our application. This is the most easiest method actually to deploy your application. That is why I'm using this. If you are not aware of Elastic Beanstalk, you can actually watch one of my videos, which is actually about Elastic Beanstalk. I have explained Elastic Beanstalk in detail basically. Now let's go to application. I'll just create this application here, AWS SSM demo application. I create this application. I'll go to the application version. So here this is my jar file, which is already created. I'm going to upload this jar file, and version level number is version 1, which is fine. So this is the jar file of the Java code, which we have already gone through. I'm just uploading this jar file to the Beanstalk application. Okay, now my code is basically application version is created. Now what I'll do is I'll create the environment. This is basically the deployment that I'm going to do now. I'll just give the name as dev1, and here I'll give as AWS SSM dev1. I'm not going to explain the Elastic Beanstalk because it's a separate thing. Okay, I have already created a video on that. You can use that video. So just going through this So this is the application name, the environment name. Domain should be unique. You can check the availability. Availability is available. And platform is Java because it is our Spring Boot application, and I'm running on Java 21. I just uploaded the application code right in the application version. I'm seeing is seen here. I'm using that. I'm just going to use a single instance. Now this is the service role. Okay. This is required for the Elastic Beanstalk to actually create the whole infrastructure and environment. This is like a DevOps role. Okay. Now the most important part that we need to know for the SSM. Okay. Now this is the EC2 instance profile. So what this EC2 instance profile is? See, our Java application is going to be deployed on an EC2 instance. Now EC2 instance does not have all the access by itself. Even though it is running in my account, it doesn't have the access. So I need to pass on the access to EC2 instance. To pass on that access, what I need to do is I need to create a role. Basically, whatever role that I want to pass. Okay. So like in this case, we want to allow the parameter store values to be accessed by my application. My application is going to access the parameter store value. So that would be the access that I need to provide. The second thing is what I want is I'll be saying that okay, I trust this EC2 service to use this particular role, the role which is created by my account. Okay, so those two things are there part of this EC2, basically this role, and then you attach it to EC2 instance profile. So this role is attached to EC2 instance profile. And once this is attached, now your EC2 has the access, the required access that you want. I'll just show you the role here. So if you look at this role here, which I have already created, here what I have done is I have allowed get parameters, and get parameters by path on all the resources. Now here you don't need to mention star. You can actually give specific parameter also. But for now, for the demo purpose, I'm keeping it star. But anyways, it is going to allow all the get parameters by path on the SSM because these actions are for the SSM. So once you allow this, after that, the important part was the trust relationship, which I spoke about, right? So here I'm saying I trust EC2 service. Okay, this principle I trust. So this EC2 can assume the role which I have created. Okay, this EC2 instance can assume the role and basically access the AWS services, which is provided in the policy. It is provided in this policy. That's what we are doing in this EC2 instance, basically EC2 instance profile. Now coming to the EC2 key pair. So this is again, if you want to do SSH etc., then you need this EC2 key pair. So I have created this key pair. You can create this key pair in the EC2 page. Here, if you go here, you can directly give the name RSA, etc. And when you do a create key pair, a file would be downloaded. You can keep it on your machine. Make sure that you don't share it with anyone. Otherwise, your EC2 will be accessible by many people. You don't want that particular thing. Okay. And then to next, I just need to give the VPC. So this is my VPC. I'll enable the public address. It is not required actually, but then it's fine. I'll just keep it accessible so that in case I need to log into my EC2 instance, I can do that. That is why I've enabled this. In real production environments, we won't be enabling the public IPs of the instances. Now, this is the security group that I have created. I'll just so I have allowed on port 8090 just in case if I want to check the API using directly from the instance. Otherwise, Elastic Beanstalk actually creates a Nginx reverse proxy. So now this is also enough. It is also enough. But then I have just kept 8090 for now, and it is accessible. Basically, any source can actually contact or use this connect to this EC2. Rest all, I think I'll just keep it as it is. I'm not going to spend much time explaining it. And here I just enable it. And just keep one thing in mind. You need to add this port. Otherwise, see, I told you, Nginx, Nginx is also created by Elastic Beanstalk in your EC2 instance. Even though you don't ask for it, but Elastic Beanstalk creates a reverse proxy with your Nginx server, which acts as a reverse proxy. So all your request actually from Elastic Beanstalk goes to that Nginx server, and then Nginx server basically will just kind of a proxy. It will just forward it to the Spring. It doesn't know on which port your Spring Boot application is listening. So it is very important that you add this. Otherwise, by default, it will go to port 5000, which will not help us because our Spring Boot application is listening on port 8090. Now, once this is done, then we are good. We'll just go and create the environment. We'll have to wait for a few minutes. Once the environment is up, we can actually check. As you can see, our instance deployment is also completed successfully. Now, yeah, now the Elastic Beanstalk environment is ready. So in the Elastic Beanstalk environment, we get this domain. So if you remember, while creating the domain, we it had asked us for the name, actually unique name, right? So we had provided this AWS SSM dev one. Now we are going to using this. We are going to use this same URL. Okay. Now I'm going to just going to pass the API path. Okay. As you can see, if I go to my main controller, so my filter is working. Now I'll call this all params. Then now I should get all the values from the parameter store. So as you can see, my application name. So as you can see, my application name, my new application. I'll just open the parameter store also. So this is my application name, my new application. If I go here, the value is my new application. And if I check the version, version 1.0. If I look at the password, my DB password 123456, and allowed types JSON, XML, and Excel. As you can see, now it is we can see all these values from our parameter store. So this is how you can actually retrieve the application or basically the values from your Spring Boot application. The process is very simple. You just need to add the dependencies, AWS SDK dependencies, and then just call the required methods for it. The AWS SDK documentation is also very detailed one. You can take help of that. One more thing that I wanted to share it with you guys is basically if you want this particular code, right? You just want to try it on your own. I'll just share this link of my GitHub actually, where you can just download this code and actually run it on your machine. Okay. Hope this will help you. Thank you so much. Have a good day.